What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another gear guide video. This week we are going to be checking out Commander Zilyana, the Saradomin general for the God Wars dungeon. As usual, I'm going to be showing you a best in slot setup as well as a cheap setup. Now there are many things in between that you could make work, but this is just for a decent range of gear, so you might be able to get an idea of what you can start with and what you can work toward. At the time of this video being published, I do also have team gear guides for General Gardor and Krill Susaroth, the Bandos and Zamrock generals, respectively. Those links are in the description below, and soon there will also be an Armadillo gear guide down there, so you can look for that coming soon. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. We are going to check out the first setup, and I want to make this clear right here. I am doing a ranged guide for this one because melee is annoying and it can get a little bit sweaty. Ranged is definitely an easy way to go here, no matter if you're using the expensive setup or the cheap setup. So we are going to check out the best in slot ranged setup for Saradomin, and this will work for duo or trio teams. And we are going to check out the cheap ranged setup also for duo and trio teams. I've tested both of these setups out and they both work very, very well. I'm actually pleased to say I got a very good trip out with the cheap setup. All right, so first up, we're going to check out our best in slot setup, and this one is going to require the T-bow. With Commander Zilyana having a magic level of 300, the Twisted Bow works very, very well here, so that is why it is our best in slot weapon. It does roll off of the target's magic bonus, and it gives an accuracy and damage multiplier based on that magic level. So for the rest of the gear, full Armadillo set, the helmet, the chest plate, and the skirt. Obviously, if you are on a Commander Zilyana Slayer task, you will want to swap that out for an imbued Slayer helmet. We have an Ava's Assembler for the increase on the range stat, and obviously if you don't have this, you can use an accumulator, but the Assembler is the best. Necklace of Anguish, our ammunition is Dragon Arrows, Barrow's Gloves, Pegasian Boots, and an Archer's Ring imbued. All of this gear here gives us an attack bonus of plus 188 with a range strength of plus 87. Very nice for Commander Zilyana. Over in the inventory, we have a wide array of items. First thing you will see is the Toxic Blowpipe. This is used for targeting the minions after Commander Zilyana has been taken down. I would suggest at least adamant darts in the blowpipe for decent kill times. You don't want to have Commander Zilyana spawning while you still have minions up. One anglerfish for an emergency, or I actually eat it before I go into the room just to boost my HP over 99. I also have a set of Guthans. This is for emergencies. If you're using this gear, you most likely won't need to use the Guthans a lot, but it is very, very nice to have in an emergency. As for the super restores, 10 of those. I am bringing 10 of those, and the reason being is because Commander Zilyana does drop a good amount of supplies. She drops brews and restores and prayer potions. So you will only need 10 of those. I also have 6 bastion potions, and these are the divine version. They will give you 5 minutes of maximum ranged and defense each. So all of these 6 will last you a total of 2 hours potted time, but realistically, when you're waiting in between kills, don't pot up right away. So it'll probably last you closer to about 3 hours while you're waiting to repot. 2 Saradomin brews, once again, for emergencies. I have an ecumenical key because the Saradomin God Wars kill count is really a pain. It is the longest one. So if you're going to do Sara, I suggest that you get ecumenical keys to do so. A Holy Blessing, and this will keep the Saradomin minions off of you before you enter the room. Bones to Peaches for the sustain. And in the rune pouch, nature runes, fire runes, and 2 law runes. The 2 law runes are to get yourself to Trollheim so you can get to the God Wars dungeon. After the trip, you can just use home teleport to get out. Total gear cost for this setup, 1.25 billion GP. And once again, that is accounted all to that Twisted Bow. Just about 90% of the cost here is going to be that Twisted Bow. Now, obviously, if you don't have a Twisted Bow, you can use a lesser weapon if you have the rest of the stuff. Next step down would be an Armadillo crossbow. Now, I did this exact setup with a friend of mine. We duoed. He had the same gear as I did, and with this setup, we were able to stay for about 3 hours, and we managed to pull in just a bit over 70 kills. So we were doing pretty good in terms of kills per hour for a duo and total kills for a trip. Now, as for me, 3 hours, that's about at the limit of how long I want to be there, and I'm comfortable with that. If you want to go longer and you take a trio setup, then you most likely will need to take more bastion potions and less sustain. Next up is going to be our cheap setup. Now we're going to be using the full Saradomin Blessed D'Hide set for this one. As for this set, the Saradomin one is pretty expensive, so you can actually further decrease your gear cost for this one by just having like one Saradomin item and the rest like Bandos or something, because Bandos is cheaper than the Saradomin Blessed set, but that's entirely up to you. I just use this one because Fashionscape, it's all blue, whatever. Also with this, we're going to have Ava's Assembler, but if you have an accumulator, that is just fine. For this one, we've downgraded to the Amulet of Fury because it is way cheaper than a Necklace of Anguish. As for our weapon and ammunition, Dragon Crossbow is as low as I would go. I wouldn't bring a Rune Crossbow here unless you have some experienced team members with you that are willing to take you with that. Along with the Dragon Crossbow, you can also use the Dragon Ammunition, which you cannot with the Rune Crossbow. So Diamond Bolts E is the ammo. You'll notice in the inventory, I don't have the Ruby Dragon Bolts enchanted because with a team, you really won't need them. The max hit with this particular gear plus the Ruby Dragon Bolts is 51, while the max hit with the Diamond is 49. And if you proc those, it's really not going to make too much of a difference in the longevity of your trip. In the glove slot, once again, Barrow's gloves, and our ring is going to be the Archer's ring. I wanted to say this, and I forgot in the last setup, you won't see any Zami items here, because if you are using the Ecumenical Key, you can run right past the Zamorak minions that are down in the Saradomin area and go right into the room. If you are going to get KC, obviously you'll need to bring a Zamorak item. We will also notice that our defense bonuses with this setup are actually significantly better, and that is going to be because you are able to wield a shield along with the crossbow. So that does give a slight boost to our defense bonuses, but we'll talk about that in a second. Additionally, our ranged attack bonus plus ranged strength is also higher, 200 to ranged attack and 124 to ranged strength, but because of the T-Bow's unique mechanic with that damage roll and accuracy roll off of the magic level, that's what makes it more powerful. As for the inventory, it's going to be mostly the same, just a couple of slight differences. Once again, Toxic Blowpipe and the minimum darts you want to use in here is going to be Adamant for this. As for the Guthan set, it's probably going to be more useful for you for this setup because the kills inevitably are going to be longer since you are not using a Twisted Bow, and the Dragon Crossbow is, to put it lightly, much worse than the Twisted Bow, but it will still work in a team setting. As for the potions, we have still 10 super restores, but once again, Zilyana does drop a good amount of bruise restores and prayer potions throughout long trips. 6 Divine Bastion potions, once again, to keep you fully potted for up to 2 hours on the trip, probably closer to 2.5 to 3, since you'll be probably waiting sometimes between kills to pot back up to make it last as long as possible. We do have 4 Saradomin brews in this one, and that will be for a little bit more sustain or emergencies, considering your kills will be longer. Ecumenical Key again, but if you're not using this, you can replace that with a Zamorak item. As for the Bones to Peaches, sustain, and the same runes in the rune pouch, nature, fire, and a couple of law runes. For the total gear cost for this one, only 14.9 million. So in comparison to the Twisted Bow, much more affordable. And if you were using an Armadillo crossbow with this setup, it would probably jump the cost up to about 40 million. So everybody, that is going to wrap up the gear setup guide video for teams for Commander Zilyana. I hope that you have learned something, and I hope that this can help you get a team together and get out there and try to get yourself some drops. Like I said earlier in the video, I have tested both of these setups out myself, and they have both worked admirably for me. I do enjoy being at Commander Zilyana for a good amount of time, but anything over 3 hours, it really starts to get a little bit boring and too grindy for me. After that, I like to switch up what I'm doing. So if you're into 2 to 3 hour trips, these are the setups for you. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up down below. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and tap that subscribe button on your way out. Thanks guys for watching. I will see you on the next one. Take it easy, everybody.